Then I'll sit down and I'll talk a little bit about kind of my journey to where I'm at now, and then I'll open it up to questions for any of you guys that have anything. So you're kind of sitting in the lighting room, but this is my treatment room, but I'll bring you out to the reception room first. Sorry, you're gonna be on my computer, so here you go. The nice part is about my clinic is this is a multifaceted place. So we've got a bunch of different practitioners here, and also my partner is an interior designer. So that's why this place looks as amazing as it does. So I actually have him to thank for that. So when you come in, we're actually in a building, we're up on the second level. There you can see combined clinics. So we've got that on the door. And then when you come through, maybe I'll go out so you guys can see this a little bit better. The lighting's a bit poor. Here you go. So this is my waiting area. So I wanted it to feel really luxurious when people walk in, because as a chiropractor, we're kind of known for being a little bit hippie, a little bit out there, a little bit different. But ultimately, I want people to walk in and be like, wow, this is like Tom Ford's living room. And so everything is down to a particular detail, really, really, really well done. So I have, like, again, I have my partner to thank for that. But as you can see, we just, the waiting area is not really a bunch of chairs lining a room. It's actually a custom lounge and all that kind of wonderful stuff. The reception area, because I don't have a receptionist, because we do mostly everything is all computerized. People book online, so we don't have to do too much of that. But when I do take payments and stuff, that's it right there. Sorry for the poor lighting, guys. In here it's a little bit, here, I'll go more like there. I've got a little retail section right there. And then we've got some private offices. There's one, there's two, three, and there's one at the end of the hallway as well. We actually have cosmetic injectors here as well. And we're bringing out a Reiki person. Also, she's a medium. So we've got a whole bunch of different people here. I'll show you what kind of one of the injecting rooms looks like. So we've got the treatment table, and then we've got some beautiful marbling cabinets. Again, the rooms are probably just as nice as they are out there. I'll keep that on. And then in here, in this room, which is actually quite big, it's this whole entire area back here. We actually have yoga, Pilates, and bar classes as well. So we've got that included into it, because I think that's a really important aspect to health and well-being, so that people stay fit and active and mobile and all that good stuff. And then we come into my area. So there's the front, looking back, swooping around, and then into my treatment area. So the way I've got it kind of set up is we've got 3 practitioners here at the moment. So it's me and then two new grads actually that I've just hired. So that's kind of exciting for me. Right here is the therapy bay. So in these 2 beds, there we go. I'm reversed. There we go. This is where I kind of start people off, and then I do kind of electric muscle stim, ultrasound. We've got broad spectrum light therapy, cold laser therapy, cupping, dry needling, all that kind of stuff that we do kind of in this area. And then when they're ready to get adjusted, then we move over to treatment areas here. So these are just more for adjusting. And then this table over here is called a Hill DT table. So in particular, I have a bit of a soft spot for people that have disc problems. And that table is the best of the best of the best of the best. I think it's really important that in practice that we have really good quality equipment, because it offers a higher level of service. And what I've learned in private practice is people will come from near and far to see the best of the best. And you can charge a premium for that as long as you're in a premium, you offer a premium service and a premium setting. So that's what I do. And then in there is also a private exam room. So as most of you probably pre-med or med students or something like that. Yeah. So as a chiropractor speaking to you guys, it's a little bit different. You're not going to have an open plan like this usually. I mean, I don't really want to get operated next to someone. But ultimately, this is kind of the setup that works really well for me. And I've gotten great success from it. And then, yeah, so a little bit about me. I grew up in rural Minnesota, out of all places. I grew up in a town called Jeffers, Minnesota, population 349 people. So, yeah, I'm sure a lot of you probably have grown up in small towns as well, coming from the US or in big cities. And yeah, so grew up on a farm, did my undergrad. I was actually going to become a pharmacist was the intention. So I went to the University of Minnesota in Duluth as a biochem pre-pharm major. And I loved biochemistry. My favorite class actually was organic chemistry. Victor Zdonkin was my professor. I still remember him. And he's the coolest man. He would sit there. We had a big lecture hall. There was probably about 350, 400 of us. And he would sit there and he'd get his PowerPoint ready behind, and it was all like stadium kind of style seating. And then he would get his PowerPoint going, and then he'd take the microphone and put it on. You guys probably have professors that do this as well, which I kind of find quite funny. And they tap the microphone to see that it's on. And then he goes, "Well, let's get started." And in his very thick Russian accent, but I loved the class. It was really good. I probably can't recite too much from nomenclature or anything like that. But it was a great class and I loved it. It was a great experience. But yeah, then I was working at a nursing service pharmacy in Duluth, Minnesota as well. And I loved it. I loved the people I worked with, but I just realized it wasn't really for me. It didn't sit right with me on how I wanted to help people's health and well-being. And I had seen chiropractors before, and someone kind of mentioned, "Well, have you ever thought about becoming a chiropractor?" And I was like, "Oh, well, geez, why not?" So I applied actually for early admission into chiropractic school, and I got accepted. So I moved down to Minneapolis, and I went to Northwestern Health Sciences University, where I finished out my Bachelor of Science degree in human biology. So it switched a little bit. And then I got my Doctor of Chiropractic. And then as soon as I graduated chiropractic school, I hate the snow and the cold. Absolutely dread it. And then I had a couple job offers here in Australia. And I thought, well, why not? This is the time in my life to do that. And so I moved all the way to Sydney, Australia. I was working for a chiropractor for about 3.5 years. I got permanent residency, and then I moved out onto my own. I consulted at a big medical practice as a chiropractor for about a year. And then my old clinic, not in this beautiful space, but my old one came up for sale. So another chiropractor was selling the practice, so I bought it. And then I expanded. And then we moved into these bigger premises, and now I've expanded even further. And then there you go. As we say in Australia, Bob's your uncle. So this is where I've kind of landed, and it's been quite an amazing ride. It's some of you may end up having your own private practices, and some of you may work more in hospital settings, in multiple clinics, whatever it is. I must admit, what chiropractic does quite poorly is that there's a lot of lone wolves. We like to work by ourselves. We don't really play well with others. But you, as med students and future doctors, work really well in a big clinic setting. You guys work very well together, all under one roof. And it's a really great thing, because ultimately it's a better experience for the patient, which is why I've created this kind of a clinic where you've got multifacets happening. And yeah, so a couple years ago, I decided I was going to start posting videos onto my Instagram. They're a little bit different than what they are now, but they're pretty close. My partner, like I said, is an interior designer. And at the time he had about like 30 or 40,000 followers, and I had 1,500. And I'm like, how can an interior designer have so many followers? Like, all you do is post pictures of insides of people's houses. Like, who cares, right? It's because we're science minded. All of us here are science and math. This is what we do. This is the test you do. This is what it shows. This is the treatment protocols. Like, we understand this. And his is very airy, fairy, fluffy. Look how pretty this is. Ooh, that lamp there is $20,000. And I'm like, why? I just don't understand. But anyway, he looked at my page and he just goes, "You're not consistent. It's not curated. Your page doesn't look very good." And so I said, okay, well, what am I going to do? What's my aha moment, or what's my moment that I absolutely love? And for me, it's the crack. Like I love adjusting people. And that's, as a chiropractor, that's how we treat our patients. We do an extensive neurologic exam, physical exam, orthopedic exam, and then I can fine tune and be very precise with where I need to adjust and remove the pressure on the nervous system. I don't know, has anyone ever been to a chiropractor before? Yeah, some have. I see a few, some no's, some yeses. Listen, I'm always under the impression as a healthcare provider. So yeah, so we've got a few nopes, we got a couple yeses, yeah. Ultimately, I will never, as another health professional, bag out another health profession. I think it's absolutely wrong to do that. There's a time and a place for everything. And ultimately, if you have the best interest of the patient at heart, we will all work together much better. So I've come across, varying degrees, and ultimately on social media, I open myself up to criticism. And I must admit, though, it's been very welcoming for me. And I'm not posting a lot of these videos. I'm not posting them for other healthcare providers. I'm posting them for potential people that need chiropractic care. And if it moves them in the right direction for getting that care, whether it's through a chiropractor or a physio or an osteo or a GP or an orthopedic surgeon or whatever it is, that's our goal, is to get these people help. And that's what I wanted my videos to show. They can make up their mind if they want to come and see me or another chiropractor or whoever. But ultimately, yeah, so I started posting these videos on my Instagram, and then slowly it kind of started gaining a little bit of traction, but I was really consistent. I posted a video a day. At the time, I wasn't using a very good quality microphone, and I was missing the really thunderous crack that I can produce. And then I started finding that people really were attracted to that. And then also our reactions. It is a very foreign thing to get adjusted for the first time. It's a weird sensation. It doesn't hurt, but it's just odd. And I wanted to capture that moment and people's reactions as well. And that's what my videos have really done a great job of doing. So then fast forward, I started ticking along, and then there came a moment where I actually passed the amount of followers that my partner had. And so there was a little bit of hostility in the household. I don't recommend it. But we got through it, and now, I've got over 250,000 followers on Instagram. But really the big thing for me, and what I'm seeing a lot more often now, is TikTok. TikTok has really transformed my business and has allowed me to showcase chiropractic care and what I do as a professional to hundreds of millions of people around the world. So I've been very fortunate. So yeah, I went from 0 to now I have 2.6 million followers very quickly. I've been on the platform for about a year, give or take, so about a year. But yeah, so in 2020, I had almost 300 million views on my videos. So yeah, it's been pretty amazing. And I've gotten some great people contacting me. And without a doubt, I'm probably averaging 20 to 25 new patients every single week. I probably see around 100 to 125 patients a week. So some of them are 30-minute appointments, some of them 15-minute appointments, but I can, I'm here for 44 hours a week. So I can fit them all in. And yeah, so of those 20 to 25 new patients a week, 80 to 90% of them are all from social media. So it's really transformed. I'm not saying that, everyone has to do this. Not every chiropractor has to do what I do. They can emulate me. There's quite a few of them out there that are trying now. And I know that there's some really, in the US anyway, there's some very successful plastic surgeons that have utilized social media to their advantage. Whether you agree with it or not, that's entirely up to you. But really, they're just trying to make a buck just like the rest of us, right? This is why we do this. But it's also, I think I've been fortunate enough now to now have the platform and a big enough following, so I get to be a bit of a spokesperson for chiropractic care and how it can help people. So yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. Yeah, I might open it up to a few questions, because I have a feeling some of the questions will probably tailspin off into longer conversations, which they normally do. I don't know if you guys want to, I prefer that people talk to me rather than typing to me. And then, so if you want to ask a question, maybe if we can have you guys just ask it and then I'll discuss. Is that easier for you guys?
Yeah, that would be perfect. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask Dr. Cody? And sorry, I hopped on a few minutes late, but I just want to say thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. And thank you, Dr. Cody, for taking the time out of your day to speak with us. This is such an honor to have you here.
No worries. Love it.
Yay. Anyone has any questions, feel free to just unmute your mic and go for it.
Yeah, let's bring them on.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I know you talked about Minneapolis and the cold. Is the heat what drew you specifically to Australia? What was the drive to go there?
Yeah, I mean, so I visited here. I actually had a very close friend of mine that studied abroad in Australia, and he spoke really, really highly of it. He was like, "Oh, it's really great." He actually studied in Perth at Murdoch University. So I guess initially he kind of planted the seed, I suppose. And he spoke, he goes, everyone there is just really down to earth. They're very cool. They're warm. They're welcoming. It's really easy because we speak English here. As you probably noticed, my accent has changed a little bit. I don't talk like I'm from Minnesota. I probably can if you need me to, but oh gosh, it's quite funny to turn that on for some people every once in a while. But yeah, certainly going to a warmer climate. I love the ocean and being near the water. So for me, being in Sydney was a great opportunity because I can't look out of my window and see the ocean, but it's pretty much a 10-minute walk straight that way and I'm already on the harbor, which is stunningly beautiful here. I can hop in the car and drive 15 minutes and be in probably 20 different beaches, and we're in the city. So it's, I suppose I didn't know that I was going to move here until I visited here. And when I visited here, you know how sometimes you go to a place and you just, like, it just feels right? I don't know. It's just a feeling that you get. I don't know how to explain it. It's just this feeling you're like, wow, I really love it here. I feel like I'm at home, like something draws you there. And that's the way I felt the first time I visited here. As soon as that plane landed in Sydney, I was like, yep, this is it. So yeah, so it's a bonus that it doesn't snow in Sydney. It does. They did not tell me, they did not tell me that it does snow in Australia. Like, it does get quite chilly here during our winters, but nothing like Minnesota. So if you can bear Minnesota winters, and for you that are joining in like Canada as well, I feel for you. But some people love the snow and the cold. Like, good on you. It's just not my cup of tea. So yeah, but if I would say anything, and this is probably a little bit of words of wisdom for all of you, find somewhere that you want to live, then work there. But don't go somewhere just because you're getting a great job offer. You really need to live there as well. And if you don't like the city or the town or the village or whatever it is, it's going to be hell. Because all you're going to want to do is work, and then you're not going to have fun. Yeah, so does that answer your question for the most part?
Yes.
When we can travel a bit more, everyone should come to Sydney and see me. And actually, what's really quite amazing is directly right next, like literally across the street from me, and for the next like 3-4 blocks, is called St. Vincents Hospital, and they've got there's right across I don't know if you guys can see this because of the lighting. Not really. There's a cardiac research building directly across the street from me called Victor Chang. He was an amazing cardiologist here in Sydney. Unfortunately, a number of years ago, he actually got murdered So the building is dedicated to him. He was an amazing man, and he's put forth all this money and effort into helping people, which is always what you want, right? So his memory still lives, and I know that he continues to help many people even after his death. And then we also have the Kinghorn Cancer Center right next door. So they do a lot of cancer research and cancer treatments. So we've got kind of it all right here. So which is pretty amazing to be in this precinct.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions in the chat. First one is, did you need to do an exam to start working in Australia after finishing school in America?
Yeah, so just like most places, you'd have to sit a board exam, which is what I did. So I came over here, had to show all my paperwork to show that I was legit and graduated from an accredited university. And then I sent through my transcripts and everything. And then what we did here in Australia is I sat their board exams, which there were a few different components to it. And then there was also a practical component where you have to sit and show your competency. And then you sit there and wait 3 months for the results. And then all I had to do was just wait, work under someone else's license. And then as soon as I got mine, then I could practice full time and have sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Another one, Canny says, how do you address people who may be weary of chiropractic? How do you talk to them about it, its benefits, and answer their concerns?
Great question. And we do get this quite a bit. Ultimately, I don't really get too many people that come in that are wary of chiropractic. They're at least willing to try it, right? They've heard maybe from one of their friends or family member that, ooh, they went and saw a chiropractor and it helped them with their fill in the blank, back pain, headaches, whatever it was. And so I don't really get too many people that are really skeptical of chiropractic or what it can do. Really, ultimately, as soon as they come into the clinic and I bring them through and start my exam or the consult to start off with in the history, is I sit them down and it's really geared towards what's going on with them. So, I mean, ultimately, I want to know what their problem is and what is going to be the best mode of treatment for that. So how am I going to do an exam that will help me to figure things out? And if I have to send them off to get an x-ray or whatever the case is, or go to their GP so they can get blood works done or whatever it is. So we kind of gear towards that. When they're really in here, it's all, like I said, maybe my approach is a little bit different, but it's all about, you know, this is what they're coming in with. This is what the exam showed, and then therefore this is the treatment protocols that I provide. And for me, the proof is in the pudding. So as soon as they start seeing results, that's when they're like, oh, this actually works. And a lot of times when I have patients come back a week or two later after their first appointments just to recheck things, it depends on, sometimes people are coming in very regularly. Like if they have a disc herniation, let's just say at L4, L5, I'm going to be seeing them quite a bit, and they're going to be on that Hill DT table behind me decompressing their discs. So I'm going to be seeing them maybe 3 times a week initially. But ultimately, a lot of times they come back after the first one and then they go, you know, it actually helped. I actually feel better. So I always laugh when they use the word actually, because I find that quite funny that people are like, wow. And you can tell that they're a bit skeptical to start off with, but ultimately if they're getting results, and it doesn't matter if they're seeing me, like I said, or any professional, we're results driven. So we want people to function and feel better. We want the tests then that we did that said, you are experiencing this, this is why it's happening. Well, now we need to do something to fix them. We need to do something to help them and to move them into a direction of where they're always healthy and fit and active, and mental health is great. And, you know, so it's all encompassing. Yeah. But I do get that. I mainly get that from other professionals that are a bit skeptical. So it's other health professionals that are kind of like, oh, chiropractor, why would you go see a chiropractor? They're quacks. But hey, don't diss it till you try it. Most of the time that comes out of ignorance. You know, if they've been through chiropractic school and then they're saying these things, good on them. Hey, they've been there, they've done their due diligence, they've learned about it enough to the nth degree to where they can make those judgments. But I don't know. Yeah, don't diss it till you try it.
That's an awesome answer. Katie asks, what are the risks of going to a chiropractor?
And this is great. So just like any treatment, there is always going to be a risk. You can't negate and get to zero. You can't, unfortunately. So sometimes when people come here, I pick and choose what style of adjustments I give them. Sometimes it's very low force depending on what they're presenting with. Like I'm not going to, for those of you that have seen my videos, I'm not going to do a manual adjustment like that on a 98-year-old osteoporotic woman. Like you just don't do that. So you have to really tailor it to the treatment to the person. So that's one thing that you do as a professional. You pick and choose what's going to be the best for the patient. You can't negate that sometimes shit happens and you don't know how their bodies are going to react. So I've seen in the past, well, I haven't seen any, but I've seen in the past other chiropractors that potentially have, fractured a rib. Like sometimes that happens if you push hard enough and there's a weak point in the bone or whatever, you can fracture someone's rib pretty easily. Like it doesn't take, like if you've ever, like one day, I hope that you guys will never actually have to perform CPR on someone, but most likely you guys being in the medical field, you probably will, unfortunately. And when you're doing CPR, if you're doing it right, you're probably going to crack a few people's ribs. Like that's just the way it is. Like it happens. Hopefully you save their lives or at least prevent brain damage, but this is what happens. So another risk factor that does get brought up with chiropractic is the risk of creating a vertebral artery dissection. So you in essence cause a complete, with a manual adjustment. Now that's, the risk of that is roughly 1 out of every 3 million adjustments, all the way up to 1 out of every 30 million adjustments. So the research is a little bit out there. Listen, it's exceptionally rare. There would probably be a predisposing factor. Also, if the patient's coming in, they would be experiencing symptoms. There would be something going on. But like I said, you can never with any treatment, like even if you said, hey, I want you to go home and take some ibuprofen to help with inflammation, there's a risk factor with that. You just don't know how each person is going to respond to that. But always, always, always look for the red flags. And another thing that I've learned through the years is listen to your gut. So that's one thing that I think is really important, is all of us have that great gut instinct as healthcare providers, and listen to it. If you've got that gut feeling that says something just isn't right here, think a little bit more, use all of this knowledge that you've acquired and ask other people, and then go, yep, I need to follow this. So yeah. Okay, next
Yeah.
question.
The next question, oh, I can read it for you. Don't worry.
Okay.
Is from Abigail. She asks, do you feel that people should only go to the chiropractor when they have problems, or is it something you feel should be implemented throughout most of life to maintain proper health?
Yes. Great question. Again, there's a time and a place for everything, and people will utilize chiropractic very differently. Certainly, the driving force for people to come in and see me is pain. So they'll come in, or a headache or shoulder. It's usually pain oriented, pain driven. Although yesterday I had someone with some numbness on their leg. So then I had to figure that out. So sometimes you get those odd occasions, but usually pain is the driving force. So that's what gets people in the door. In saying that, I really see chiropractic as a great way to help people maintain health and wellness. And so the majority of my patients, not all of them, but the majority of them will probably see me on a monthly basis, about once a month. And I just come in, I check their spine, find out if there's any issues with it, check their whole bodies, make sure they're functioning, make sure the muscles are testing strong, doing all that. And then we do whatever treatment. A lot of time people, especially nowadays, because a lot of people are working from home, so they're really hunched over their computers going like this all day on their dining chairs or whatever it is, or all of you students going like this all day long, every day. You're gonna have really tight kind of traps, upper traps, scalene muscles, all this. So I do a lot of electric muscle stim and help them out with that. So yeah, I guess, and through the years as well, I've had patients that have stuck with me and continue to get regular chiropractic care for as long as I've been here. I've had patients for over 11 and a half years, which is amazing, which I'm very, like, it's an amazing feeling to have that. And you develop really close relationships with these people. And then on the other hand, people will come in and see you for a quick fix, and then you won't see them again until it flares up again or whatever the case is. And that's okay too. Like that's all right with me. Yeah.
That's such a good answer. I think the next one is, oh,
Yep, go ahead.
okay. Alexis said, what are some of the benefits of chiropractic medicine from a physician's perspective and from a patient's perspective?
Yeah, great. So, and this is where I talked about, kind of hinted before, with really creating an integrated practice where you're working closely with other health professionals. And I think that that's really important going forward, because we all have our specialties, but we all have our limitations as well. So, you know, if someone came in and they just got hit by a bus and they've got their, you know, their body is completely fractured in a million places, don't come in and see me. A chiropractic adjustment is not going to help them. So, but we do have a time and a place. And sometimes the best treatment is with another professional. So I always see this one where in the instances of, we'll just use the lumbar disc issue again. So if we have a bulge, protrusion, herniation, or a sequestered disc, ultimately we want to try to avoid surgery as much as possible. In some cases though, like I've sent patients right next door to be like, hey, go down to St. Vincent's. I need you to see an orthopedic surgeon quite quickly because your disc is just way out of control and I can't handle that. So we kind of go, okay, yep, boom, done. But ultimately, for all those cases that aren't immediately surgically needed, chiropractic care is really good for these. We're really qualified in spinal issues. So that's my bread and butter. That's my specialty, and that's what I love working on. And then also the rehab aspect of that to try to get it better. And then what I do is then I hand them off to, like, let's just say an exercise physiologist to say, hey, now you need to start working on strengthening up your core and your back muscles and your glutes and stretching out your hamstrings and doing all these things. Because ultimately, and you guys as medical professionals, it's not really great to see repeat customers. I mean, it's not great, is it? Especially, I mean, in some cases, especially if you get into like oncology, that's not something that you want to see repeat customers. You're gonna help these people change their lives and live longer, better, healthy lives, which is amazing. But ultimately, we don't want to see the ones that keep coming back, right? And that's really where we have to pick and choose what's the best. Now, from the patient's perspective, I've found that there is nothing more empowering than referring to another colleague for the patient as well, because they will ultimately give you the most trust because you have their best interest at heart. We took an oath at the well, you guys have probably already taken the oath, but you'll do so again when you graduate, is to first do no harm. And that's the most important thing. I can't help everyone. A chiropractic adjustment is not going to help everyone, but I'm going to try, right? For those ones that I think I can help. Even if I got to a point down the road, let's just say a month down or even a week down, and they're still not improving, I either have to change my treatment or I have to refer on because it's in the best interest of the patient. And ultimately, my schedule is so freaking filled anyway, it doesn't matter if that patient is paying me or not, because I don't care about the money, I care about helping them. And yeah, that's something that I think is really important that we instill at a very early age in our careers, is that we need to really focus on what's in the best interest. And we have to also realize that we all have limitations. As shitty as that sounds, it's the truth. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer. Thank you so much. The next question is from Sophia, and she wants to know, what made you want to become a chiropractor? And did you think about getting an MD?
Yeah, great question. So like probably all of you, I am a nerd, huge nerd, loved science. I graduated second in my class. Like I loved school. I loved learning. So naturally, us geeks, us nerds, tend to kind of go towards these kind of professions. At one stage in my career, I thought about potentially going into cardiovascular surgery because my dad, at a very young age, had a massive heart attack. And he got flown to Sioux Falls Regional Hospital, where he had open heart surgery. And I was very young at the age, so I don't really remember too much of it or aspects of it. But that was something that hit close to home. So of course, because we've had these experiences through our lives, that's what kind of draws us towards that. But then I soon realized that I don't like the thought of chopping someone open while they're still alive really freaked me out. And I was like, no, not doing it. I can handle blood. Blood doesn't bother me, but while they're still alive and you're doing these kind of amazing procedures to them, not for me. Hands off. I want to stay on the outside of the body. I want my patients to be fully clothed. I don't want to deal with all of that stuff. So so that's why I didn't go down the medical route. Like I said, that's why I was thinking about potentially becoming a pharmacist. But then ultimately, I was already kind of gearing towards more the holistic side of things. Like I thought about becoming a compounding pharmacist. And I wanted to be like, in Harry Potter, mixing up all the little, different herbs and all these kind of things. I was already kind of gearing towards that, but then I'm like, whoa, even for me, that's a bit out there. And then that's where chiropractic kind of just naturally presented itself. In my entire career and all these years, I've always recognized this is the opportunity, this is the path that I can potentially go down. And that's just kind of what I've done. So I thought about it, but it just wasn't for me, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah, thank you for answering that. The next, did you want to ask a question? Or so I saw someone unmute, but now I don't know if I actually saw that.
That's all right.
I was just gonna ask a question, but thank you,
Yeah,
Natalie.
go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Cody. I was just wondering, based off of what you saw in America and like what you see in Australia right now, do you feel like there's more freedom in Australia to practice your own way using your own techniques than there would have been here?
Yeah, interesting. Great question. Australia has actually one of the most regulated health professionals out of anywhere. We have a governing body called APRA, and they even say, like, there's even regulations around how we can even advertise. So I can't advertise any kind of discounts, not that I give discounts anyway, because I never do. One thing is we can't even have testimonials anywhere. So for me, I was like, well, how can I showcase what I do without saying, hey, I helped this patient, look how amazing they are. Please, patient A, talk about your experience. And which is a great selling tool, but I couldn't do it here. There is quite a bit of freedom around what techniques you choose to practice. And in the US, I've been away from the US for so long, I don't know what the regulations are like in the US for chiropractors. I can only go by what I see on social media, and it looks like some of them can do whatever the hell they want. Some of the techniques I won't do. It's just because for me, it's just not me. And I don't know about the techniques. I'm not going to diss them, but I'm just going to say that's not what I use. And I probably wouldn't have that technique done on me. I just don't know what the regulations are like in the US. I would say though that we are in both quite heavily regulated, as we should be, as all health professionals should be. There should be a good governing body that oversees to make sure that all of us are abiding by rules and that we're not kind of these crazy cowboys that do whatever the hell we want, because we need to have that base. That's a really great question. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So moving on to the next question from Shiraz. I hope I'm saying the name correctly. They asked, have you ever thought about becoming a chiropractor and a pharmacist? And have you ever thought about using plant and psychedelic medicines in your multidimensional practice?
Yeah, great question. No, I will never be a chiropractor and a pharmacist. I've I've kind of done my years in university. I've thought about potentially going back and teaching though at some stage in my career, just not at the moment because I still love what I'm doing, and I always will. There will always be some degree of me seeing patients because that's what I love. And have I ever thought about using plant and psychedelic medicines in your multidimensional practice? Currently in Australia, we can't use any of that kind of stuff. We're actually quite conservative when it comes to this stuff. Even though we're very liberal in a lot of other respects, we're very conservative when it comes to this. We still don't have legalization of any marijuana use, whether it be legal or illegal. I think probably you can get, of course, get it under the table if you wanted to. And like even CBD oil is not allowed here in Australia unless you get it kind of black market kind of thing. So yeah, if I found a really amazing professional that wanted to join me at my practice and rent out one of my rooms and do that, by all means, yeah, I would love to have it here. I think that there's some great new stuff coming out and there always will be. I'm certainly open-minded to a lot of different things. It just has to fit well with what we're currently doing here at my particular practice, whether it's here or whether it's somewhere else. I mean, yeah, I'm always open to it. Oh, you guys are about to get a little surprise. Oh, there he just went out the door. I get to bring my dog with me to work every day as well, which is quite fun. So that's Mosby. He said a little hi and then he ran off. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers the question.
I think it definitely was a great answer. Also, your dog is adorable. One of the questions asked if you could explain the difference between chiropractor treatment and physical therapy. So, like, what's the difference between them?
Yeah, so I get this question quite a bit here because we just like physios here are actually very popular. There's more physios in Australia than there are chiropractors. So physios are really, 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 really good at soft tissue injuries and rehab for that. They're amazing at it. And if I ever get those kind of cases in, I'm like, just go see your physio. Don't come in and see me. I don't like to deal with that stuff anyway. So physios are really good at muscle, tendon, ligaments, all of those kind of injuries and really good at rehab. I must admit, I've come across quite a few of them that think they're also good at disc problems or spinal problems. And they're not overly great at that because they're not adjusting all day like I am. That's not their bread and butter. And I think that we all kind of have, again, our specialties. Chiropractic more looks at the neurologic function of the body. And we just happen to use the spine to adjust and stimulate the nervous system in a particular way. So that's kind of the big difference. But there are some chiropractors out there that really are good at rehab stuff. You just have to find them. And like I said, there are probably some really good physios at mobilization techniques. So it's very much personal and what that particular practitioner really enjoys doing. You want to try to find, if you're going to refer a patient out, you want to try to find a practitioner that really enjoys whatever that patient needs and send them there. Yeah, so that's the big difference. But that's a great question. I do get that often.
Yeah, that is a great question. That is a great response too. Shiraz also asks, how does oh my gosh, I can't even talk. How does chiropractic treatments address chronic inflammation, and how often do you recommend complete muscular oh my gosh, I woke up late today. I'm sorry, guys. Musculoskeletal realignment.
Okay, so chronic inflammation. Ultimately, the best way to get rid of inflammation is movement. The research is still kind of like I said, there's a time and place, and we can take a multifaceted approach. Like having non-steroidal anti-inflammatories is a really good way to get rid of inflammation, right? Also, turmeric, or the active ingredient curcumin, is also very good at getting rid of it. So they're all based on different things. Also boswellia. I don't know if you guys know about boswellia. It actually comes from pineapple core, but that's also a really strong anti-inflammatory. So there's also this medicinal approach, and then there's movement. But one of the first things that we do, especially maybe even after surgeries, but also after, like, if someone sprains their ankle, one of the first things we want to try to get them to do isn't necessarily now the old school way of thinking. I'm a lot older than all of you guys, but ultimately rest, ice, compression, and elevation is a little bit old school now. One of the most important things that we want to try to get people doing is moving. So we want them to start walking around, not injuring it, not re-injuring it. Like, I don't want them to go run a marathon on a sprained ankle, but just walking around, getting some movement in there, even mobility, just sitting there with their, ankles and just going like this, or their wrist, or whatever the case is. So chiropractic care also, when I give an adjustment, I'm moving joints. I'm allowing proper movement to happen. So that's really what we're really good at. And that's how we treat kind of chronic inflammation, is getting the body moving again and restoring some of that mobility. Are we ever going to get, though, someone with advanced degenerative joint disease into proper mobility? Are they always going to have that low grade level or even mid-grade level of inflammation? Yeah, and that's probably where working together is a really good option. So sometimes we do have to take kind of that multifaceted approach. But yeah, just moving the body and getting their bodies a little bit more pain-free so that they can move around a little bit easier is always a good thing. And how often do you recommend? So full musculoskeletal kind of realignments, I would probably recommend, like I said, anywhere from like once every 4 to 6 weeks. It depends on how much strain you're placing on your body, though. If you're not really putting too much strain on your body, they don't need to come in and see me very often. But if you're sitting at your desk for prolonged periods of time, every single day, every single week, all that kind of stuff, then yeah, it's probably not a bad idea to get adjusted regularly. Yeah. So that's that one.
Yeah, so the next question is, how has the pandemic affected you and your practice?
So it's interesting. I've been on a lot of podcasts recently, and this question is now coming up. Sydney and all of Australia actually has been exceptionally fortunate. We've really dealt with the pandemic exceptionally well. We had 2 weeks of complete lockdown, and I was able to actually practice all the way through because I'm considered an essential service. But we didn't have any more lockdowns from there on. We've had very low rates of infection here. We've done a really great job here in Australia, and I'm pretty proud of that. But it's allowed us to kind of fully function as a society. So people are out and about. There are face masks that we do wear regularly now, but it's not mandatory. It's recommended and mandatory in certain places, but not all the time. And how it's affected me, I will admit, during those 2 weeks of lockdown, my business dropped 44%. So I had quite a few cancellations. And then ever since then, 2020 was the best year I've ever had in practice, and then some. I've been booked out months in advance. So I'm very fortunate and lucky and all of those things. But it's actually helped my business to grow. I've never been more successful in my career. And I've learned, as long as you have the patient in mind and you keep doing what you're doing and offer that great service, and if that's what people need, they will flock to you. And it doesn't, like, I have patients driving 2 to 3 hours one way just to see me. I have people, when they can fly internationally or even in amongst Australia, and they come to Sydney, they want to see me. And I'm very fortunate to be able to have that level of draw. So like I said, 2020, at the very end, I haven't crunched all the numbers, but that's for my accountant, because I just keep cracking people. That's all I do. But I would probably be up around 30 to 40% on the previous year. So it's huge. It's huge. So yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but a pandemic has been one of the best things for my business. Not that I want another one to happen, but it's been very good for me.
Absolutely amazing. The question that Abigail asked says, are there similar restrictions with healthcare in Australia as in the US, or is it closer to Europe's free healthcare system?
So we have, our healthcare system is kind of a mix of public and private. Ultimately, if you go to the public system, you'll be seen no matter what, no questions asked, and it's all taxpayer funded. We do have fairly high tax rates here, but we also get great benefits. It's really nice to look after everyone. And I wish that, you know, coming from the US, I wish that it would move towards that even further. Not necessarily that it needs to be complete universal healthcare system, but I think it needs to be a good mix. In Australia, we've got a really good system. So you have a choice between going to the public system or through the private system for more elective kind of things. You do pay extra for private. A lot of people do have private health insurance. But ultimately, if you're a citizen of Australia, you have a Medicare card, in essence, what we call it here. We can go to any public or even a bulk, we call it a bulk billing place. So it's like see your GP, and there's no money out of pocket. Absolutely nothing. Everything's covered, no matter what you need. So it's really great to have that support system there. And I hope that, you know, I never have to use too much of it. But ultimately, it's great to know that you're looked after. You know, if something happened to me and I needed to go right to the hospital, there's no questions asked. We don't go through this, well, who's your provider? And then you go through the whole insurance, then you go through this, and then you get a bill for $20,000 at the end of it. Like, that's unacceptable. So I would like to see the US move into a different direction or more towards a different healthcare system, but because ultimately it's the system that's flawed, and it's us young people. Well, I was going to say us young people. It's you young people that can lead some of those changes and have input. And ultimately, we're in this profession because, again, we want to help people. And the more people that we can help that need us, that we can offer that, the better off all of us are going to be as a whole society. So that was a bit philosophical, but there you go. There's my viewpoint.
That's great. A lot of people in the chat are saying they want to move to Australia now.
Yeah, do it. Yes.
I agree. I want to too. I have a question for you, Dr. Cody. I'm just curious, what kind of stuff do you like to do in your free time when you're not working at the clinic?
Well, I mean, I like to get out and enjoy the sunshine. Okay, here's another selling point for Australia. We average over 300 sunny days every single year. So if that's one thing, and like I'll try to show you guys outside. It's a bit bright. There we go. That's focusing a little bit more. So yeah, so we have beautiful blue skies today. I mean, it is summer here, so it should be nice, right? But yeah, it's so I mean, I try to get outside as much as possible. As you just saw a little snippet of Mosby running in and out, so we like to take him to parks. And I mean, we're very fortunate here, so like I said, I like to go to the beach as much as possible. You know, we like to travel as much as we can. Last year for Christmas, we actually went to Fiji, so that was quite a beautiful experience to be able to go there. Actually, I've been to Fiji twice now because it's quite close. It's only a 5-hour plane ride. And yeah, just experiencing and seeing different things and going different places and hanging out with friends. My partner's a great cook, so eating. Yeah, that's kind of it. Nothing too crazy though. I'm not like a crazy sports person. Like because also if I ever fall and like break my wrist or something, I'm screwed. I can't practice. So so I tend to stay away from anything that's high risk.
Yeah, are there any more questions that I can quickly ask? Otherwise, I have a question of my own I can ask, but I just want to give everybody one more chance right before we wrap up.
Yep.
Okay,
I'm reading some of the comments and I'm loving it. This is fantastic. Taxes can't be that much higher than New York. Well, just to put it into perspective, I'm taxed at the highest tax rate here, which is 50%. So pretty much for every dollar that I earn, 50% of it automatically just gets taken away. I'm also, so running a business, there's some good tax incentives. So now I've got that down to about 30% tax. But it's high, but ultimately you can earn a really good living here. The thing though is the cost of living is really high, but probably not higher than in New York. So you guys probably beat us. And there's a few, I think like Singapore is probably also very high, but Singapore, you don't get income tax. So there's an incentive for you guys. Look at Singapore. When I learned that, I nearly went there. Yeah, and then you guys haven't seen, Carla hasn't seen the sun since like last year, and she's in Wisconsin. So I feel you. I feel your pain. I do not miss those days.
Yeah, I had one more question about, I know that right now you run your own business, and earlier you mentioned that you were consulting for a medical firm or practice, I forgot. What are like some of the pros and cons of running your own business?
Yeah, so I mean, the sky's the limit, right? When it's your own business. And ultimately I get to practice the way I want it to. I get to set it up the way I think is best. However, running your own business, I'm married to my business now. Like it's my pride and joy. It's my bread and butter. It's, if I don't work, I don't make money. But ultimately that's why I brought on other practitioners. So that negates some of that strain and stress. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice to work for someone else as well, because then you have a little bit of other freedoms, but ultimately then you're working kind of on a salary, or you're working on an hourly basis, or whatever it is. So yeah, so there's pros and cons to both, but I will never probably work for another person in my life. I love working for myself. I love having my own business because I get to create these amazing places and spaces and services just to help everyone. So yeah, but yeah, do what you want to do. Like running a business, you have to wear a lot of different hats as well. So, I have to think about, marketing and how am I going to get more patients to come and find out about us? Then it's, the website. And I'm not a tech savvy person, even though, on social media, it probably looks like I am, but I use my phone, I use a ring light and a microphone to do all my videos. And then I have an app on my phone where I just kind of shorten it and make up the little videos and I post it. That's it. Everything's run from my phone. So if it's easy, I can do it. If it's challenging and tech savvy, I probably can't. But that's where, as a business owner, I recognize I hate that stuff. So I then have other people to do that. So yeah. Where's some other one?
Yeah, real quickly, there's somebody private messaged me a question. Joseph, he asked, is chiro an effective treatment for scoliosis?
So scoliosis, interesting. I do see a lot of scoliosis cases. The point of a scoliosis, if it's not getting worse, let's just say it's stabilized and it's only, let's just say a double major curve, and let's just say it's, 20 degrees each. We don't need to put Harrington rods in them. So surgical intervention isn't really necessary in that case, unless of course it's getting worse, or they're in a very young person and it's really getting worse. So then certainly bracing or whatever needs to happen. Chiropractic care is more about getting the joints moving again. My goal is to never take an S-shaped curve or even just a single curve and to try to make it straight. I can't do that. No one can. It's really interesting with scoliosis because we don't really know why it does that, like why the body is making the spine twist that way. So for me, it's all about more just making sure that the spine is staying mobile. And that's more important to me rather than trying to straighten it out. I've never straightened a scoliosis before. Have I helped people to maintain certain mobility and take some pressure off their body? Certainly. But again, it's working hand in hand with other people.
Okay, awesome. I think we're gonna let that be the last question so that we can kind of wrap up. Thank you so much. Absolutely loved hearing from you, and thank you everybody for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
really quickly for the certification, I'm going to send a link to the Google form in the chat. And if you missed it at the beginning, you just have to fill out your email and your name and kind of how you heard about us. And then we'll try to send this to you within a week. And if you missed something Dr. Cody said, or you want to go and watch any of our other previous shadowing sessions, look us up on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe to that so that you can see all of those other sessions. However, if you do watch those, you won't get a certificate. You have to be a live attendee to get a certificate. So just motivation to come to more of those. Here is the link to the Google form, and we'll probably close it about 30-45 minutes after this. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we loved hearing from you, Dr. Cody.
Thank you, everyone.
right.
Also,
Thank
really
you.
quick, if it's okay with you, Dr. Cody, we would love to have a group picture. So if anyone wants to be a part of the group picture and turn on your camera, I'm just going to take a quick snapshot of that just for